picking out your tent site, you want to pick a nice flat piece of ground. Make sure that there's no sticks, rocks, or other debris that are going to poke through the bottom of your tent, all before you take your tent out of the bag. Now that we have our tent site picked out, we're going to take out our tent and inventory everything that we have in our bag. In this instructional video, we are not using a ground cloth underneath our tent. However, it is highly encouraged that all scouts always put a ground cloth underneath their tent. The ground cloth will protect the bottom of the tent and help to significantly extend the lifespan of your tent. As we unroll our tent here, you're obviously going to have the main tent body, your rain fly, a piece that hangs inside of your tent to store your goodies, tent stakes. You always want to make sure you always have extra tent stakes with you. Get your bag of tent poles here that we're going to need here in a little bit. This is a really easy tent to set up. It only has 2 main tent poles for the body of the tent and 2 tent poles for the rain fly. So as we get ready to set up our tent, we're going to unfold the tent and orient the tent how we want it for our own campsite. You want to pay particular attention to what direction you place the door on your tent. As we get started to put up our tent, we want to get our tent poles out of the bag. Greg's going to take a minute here and expand his tent poles. As Greg expands his tent poles, he will place the tent poles across the tent at the diagonal. Of course, Greg has referred to his instruction manual on how to put up his tent multiple times, so he already knows that on this tent, it's a simple cross design for the 2 tent poles. Now that he has his tent poles all spread out, he's going to start by inserting the end of one tent pole into the grommet on one corner of the tent. The grommet holds that end of the tent pole in place as he goes. Then he's going to walk across opposite corner of the tent and place the other end of the tent pole in the other grommet. Now he's simply going to go through and attach little plastic clips onto the tent pole. Now there's various other different kinds of dome tents out there. Some of these dome tents you have to actually run the tent pole through a little sleeve and they don't have the clips. But this is a great Eureka tent that Greg bought at the Scout Shop through scoutstuff.org, and it's a really easy tent to put up. Right in the middle of the tent, there's a clip that goes right down the center of both of the tent poles. That creates the top ridge. As he goes along here, he's going to make sure he has all of his clips in place for his first tent pole. Then he's going to come to the other tent pole and begin the process all over again by first inserting the end of the tent pole into the grommet on the corner, and then going to the other side of the tent here in a minute. Needless to say, putting up a tent is much easier with multiple people's help. Having 2 scouts work together to put up the tent you can put up a tent very quickly. Greg's just going to clip on the little clips for the second tent pole. And our base of our tent will be complete. Thanks to the magic of movie editing, we sped up Greg to get to the point where he's putting in the tent stakes. On each corner of the tent, there's a small loop where you insert your tent stake. The tent stakes will hold to the ground the tent in case of higher winds. When you're putting in your tent stakes, you want to put them at a slight angle facing away from your tent so they have better holding power. After doing the first corner, you go to the opposite corner of the tent and pull the tent taut to stretch out the bottom of the tent where you'll be sleeping tonight. Now that we have the tent up and staked down, it's time to put on that rain fly. Greg is going to put together poles for the rain fly. Now that the pole's put together, you simply feed that pole through the top of the tent. Connect the long strap to one end of the rain fly pole, along with one more plastic clip. Head over to the other side of the tent and do the same thing. As Greg puts tension on this tent pole, you will see that it forms a nice arch. This will provide a great way for the rain to run off of your tent and not pool up on top of your tent. He has one more tent pole to put in for the rain fly, and that one's going to go front to back, and that one installs the same way as the one he just did. Now that we have the rain fly poles all put into place, it's time to get that rain fly on the tent. You want to make sure that you orient your rain fly the proper direction onto your tent. Most manufacturers will print the name of their company or another logo on the front and back of the rain fly to make it easy to orient it. You want to start by draping the rain fly over your tent. Careful not to overexert yourself. As you continue to spread your rain fly out over your tent, you're going to see that it has four corners that goes to each of the four corners of the tent. Each end of the rain fly has a small bungee cord on it. But before we take care of that, you got to go down the center and the sides of the tent, and there's a little Velcro strap that velcros around the end of each tent pole. Last thing we have to do is grab those bungee straps and go down to the corner right by the stake and hook those bungee straps in. Those bungee straps are going to hold the rain fly securely down to the tent, and putting together your tent is complete.